Welcome to the Lost Signals Reviews, the American Film Institute's Top 100, where we critique the supposed 100 greatest American movies of all time. Join us as we decide if they're worthy of the Mott's Top 100. Or Mott's.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Lost Signals Reviews, the AFI. Today we are doing number 5, Lawrence.
No, it's number 7. I'm looking at it right now. Yep.
Well, there's a correction list, I believe, officially. If you look it up, I think it was number 7 in the original and number 5 in the revision. I think.
Fair enough. Number 7 on the AFI, Lawrence of Arabia. I'm Jonathan Ian Manzer, here with my Bedouin buddies, Scott Thurler.
English!
Christopher Morgan.
Want to play a game of bridge?
And Joe Soria.
Lawrence.
So I'm going to start off with my log line and then go right into plot. Dances with Arabs.
It's quite good, yes.
But so about the plot, there is a thematic element I'm going to discuss the plot in. But beforehand, it's about a young Englishman who's during World War I named T.E. Lawrence. And then he gets sent to Arabia to rally the rebels there.
You got to sort their shit out there, mate, in Arabia.
And he's sent because he's more of an empathetic individual versus the strict military man. And it's his adventures and so on and so forth. But, however, I want to talk about that. This is, in fact, in a sense, 2 movies, and often cited as such. There's the initial section, the 2-hour section of the movie. There's intermission, and then the latter half. The first part of the movie follows along the lines of Joseph Campbell's the
Hero's Journey.
And it very much does match quite a bit of that concept, where a young man who doesn't feel comfortable in his surroundings goes out, he gets an order to adventure. He meets friends along the way. He wins them over. He goes through trials and tribulations. And in fact, he returns home at the end of part 1, a changed man, dressed differently, and he is now elevated above where he left and being accepted back into the society. But that's the first half, and often cited as the better half, which I can see why, because it hits all of the traditional mythological aspects of it. The second part, considered somewhat of a downer, and rightfully so, because it had the audacity to discuss the journey of the hero after the journey and what happened to Lawrence after he has moved from being a human to being an ideology, a symbol, and how he is used by both the Arab forces, the British powers, and how he has sort of bought into his own image.
Even the media, yeah. Exactly.
The actual effects of going on such a journey, that it's all fun and games until it is no longer. And the downer he has in the first section is about his growth as a person. He has to kill a man who he saved in order to keep peace. The second part, they're the results of him being a symbol. And he starts being, all the friends he built start falling apart from him. And he's no longer a man. He's an idea. He's going full on Kurtz in like the latter half of that. Well, part of the description in Hero of a Thousand Faces is what happens to the hero after the journey. And in a way, he becomes the tyrant. He becomes a monster that he was fighting. He becomes, he becomes broken by the system. And it's fascinating to watch that part. And I think that even though some people say it's a perfect movie and then it's a good movie, no, it's a perfect movie because the second part is uncomfortable to watch. It's incredibly, it takes everything you want of a adventure film. No, here's the repercussions of it.
Good, Chris.
Yeah.
No, whenever you're done, Ian, because I want to...
a 3. Go ahead.
Okay, because I was going to piggyback off that, because actually, Ian, I was thinking about you quite a bit last night when we were watching this, because, well, it is...
So you look just like Lawrence of Arabia.
Well, of course. No, because
like Blue Eyes and everything.
Because the first half is very it's not completely light, but it's very much, if we were going to write a puff piece, if it was going to be a piece of propaganda on this guy, it would have stopped in the 2.5 hour mark. Boom. And that was my fear. And then first of all, the film does not feel its time. 2.5 hours went like that.
It ain't Ben-Hur. We'll say that for sure.
So
did you not feel the last hour after? Because it's 3.5 hours. Just want to get to
No. But like the break was about 2 hours and 20 or something like that. So we get back, and the second half is, as Ian says, it's a lot darker. It deals with a lot of repercussions. The whole thing is weighing on him. Like, he started believing his own press. Then the attrition takes over to the point where he's like kind of manic. He doesn't know what to do. He's like, no prisoners, when he had the option at one point to not attack and move on, or to attack, he became slightly manic. And I really appreciate the fact that this film, especially given the time, was a warts and all thing. I mean, because Christ, we live in the United States. How much half truths and, George Washington and all these things. It's just like, we added on to the mythos to bury stuff. So when you have films in this nature, it's very easy to show the, all the good things, but not show the hero, as you say, fallen. What happens after the hero's journey? We constructed this character, and for the last hour and a half, we deconstruct the character. It's quite good, and I have to say, the final scene was just when he's driving and the motorcycle drives past him, because it began with him on the motorcycle, his death. I thought was a perfect full circle. But I just really wanted to gauge my appreciation as to where they put the intermission, why they put it there, and that the second half of the film validated the first half. As beautiful and wonderful as it was, without that second half, it would have been a puff piece. So this is getting a very strong 3. I fucking love this movie.
Yeah, I mean, put me down for a 3, and you said it, most of it. I'll just paraphrase, I suppose. Why it works so well is because of that division. And yeah, it's a subversive deconstruction. The first half is fucking Indiana Jones, right? Second half is Heart of Darkness or Apocalypse Now or something like that, at least. So yeah, and it works so well because of that. And you're right, Chris, like the bookend is perfect. It's almost like, not quite, but one of my first notes is like Citizen Kane, just because it starts with his death. And it's like, I knew Lawrence, he's a great man, or I didn't know him at all, but I heard he was a great man, like, shit like that. And then you see his journeys, like you said, the hero's journey, and then the after hero's journey, which is a lot less exciting and a lot less glamorous, if you will, than what you're normally shown. So yeah, 3, it narratively works completely, especially because of the way it's balanced between the two sections.
Yeah, I mean, that's, and I think one of the I think it was Lawrence, or it was one of them at this funeral, says big things have small beginnings, and you have this big things epic. It's all building up to being bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? It starts so small in one room. He's painting a map. I mean, like after the death, obviously. Well, I'm going to leave the flashback and start with the story in its order. The flashback, I mean, it really starts over the credits with that awesome just overhead shot. And you're just, why are we looking at the top of a guy on a bike? It's such a great way to do it, where you're just like, oh, this isn't going to mean anything. It's just one of these wasteful things. And then it actually is like, just showing you like how the care and attention, and then it can be gone in a second. But that, that's the same thing that he's doing in the painting, and whatever he's doing, he does take true care in everything that he does. So, for me, that you have that funeral scene where everyone says, I didn't know Lawrence, I don't know him. So it seems like we're learning, and we're going to learn more about him, and we're going to get that whole growth, and we're going to get all about him. We're not going to get just the cross-section that's going to lionize him as some great epic hero, like there's a warts and all scenario. So it's, the Middle East version of a Western, right? It's a Western epic in the East, right? And it's like this great, because I mean, it's desert and walking and traveling. It's those same things, but they're on camels. It's every single thing you could see in like a John Ford film, but you get it with a different war, whole different perspective of people. So you replace the Mexicans with the Arabs or whatever, or what other like Southern, country, outside of America. And it's a perfect kind of transposition of that type of thing in plot. So I'm on a 3 too, because it meets all the needs for me, for sure.
Yep. Nice.
Well, Joe, continue talking. about themes.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, this is definitely pretty stock hero themes for me, right? You're going, perseverance, dream, inspiration, the ebbs and flows of life, the contrast of like how much of trust, right? It's all about trust, really, to me, the whole movie. And you have the trust that he's building the whole time from minute one, where he's building it with the first person that he meets, takes him out into the desert. That person gets killed. He needs to then Ali needs to get his trust, and then he has to get the king's trust. And then he goes back and he is going back to the British for trust to then be enforced back into the Arabian, the king. So, that's, I think, the big one. And the last one, obviously, is sacrifice. That's the other thing he has to learn. So trust and sacrifice are the key cogs. And I think it has that great ebb and flow feeling of quiet moments that are more important to the theme than the great battles that are really the filmmaking. Yeah, the set pieces obviously are, I don't know when that wants to be covered, but I mean, it's they're crazy. Like, they still would be crazy on any scale. But the quiet moments are the ones that set the themes apart. And war is war. Everything else it's the spaces between that really speak to it. So it's one for me for sure.
Yeah, no, I like that quite a bit. I almost fully agree that super strong one. And you're right, E. It sort of ties in, like, because of the way they did the narrative and the character work, which I guess we'll get to also in a second, but that both of those things flow into themes. And I think that it does create like a perfect full-bodied picture, like you said, like, flaws and all exposed, right? And that then bleeds out into the themes, bleed out into a lot of other elements of the film. So
one of the better or philosophy episodes that we did, I forget the name of it, but the one that stuck with me all these years is the analysis of biographies as narrative devices, in that the end and how, or the part which you're telling, and everything before that is you telling the story of the chaos of your life as a movement towards the point you're at this point. This starts off with his death, and death is actually a huge common nature, but also the naturalness of death that is part of this kind of plan, where he saves the guy in the desert, and people are like, no, he's lost. He goes out anyway, changes fate, but has to kill him in the long run. In a sense, D. Lawrence probably should have died on his campaigning. He should have gone out like in Alexander the Great,
a blaze of glory or something,
before politics could corrupt the ideal of who he is. It starts off with him dying, speeding, because he's lived longer than his story.
Yep.
And I think that that's a fascinating, watching his growth. And then, again, what happens after? Well, all that happens after is now the death awaits him. It's
Yeah, well, when you say the funeral scene part, I mean, you think about it, the whole point of it, I think, is that they say no one knew him well. No one knows him well. And the reason that no one knows him well is none of the people that were probably in that campaigns are at that funeral. You only see the British soldiers that he didn't spend any time with in the entire movie, right? So who would know him well? The people that aren't there, they were probably either not around anymore, or died in the battlefield, or he lost them. So he dies a hero that no one knows. Almost, they know why he's a hero, but they don't know what he did in essence. And that's kind of a crazy inversion of that type of scene. Usually everyone's like praising and lauding him, and it's not that type of a funeral scene. It's the opposite. It's like, who is this guy?
Yep, exactly. Sorry, Chris, this one's for you. You either die a hero, of course, or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Like, I have to tell you.
Or live long enough yourself used by the system.
Yeah, exactly. Well, on eyes, then, even in a sense. But yeah, that's all. Still a super strong one for me.
Yeah. I like what kind of piggybacking off of what something Joe said. I really liked the moments where you pointed out that the moments of contemplation were much more important than the battlefields, the big epic things. This film, I like minutia is one of these things that you have to use very carefully. Certain people can do it well. Certain people pad the shit out of things. But the thing is, I would guess we're going to get to style when I talk about how this film was shot. Sure. The fact that it was there's no CGI. But so really you are looking at, you know, actual filmmaking. And the thing is, a lot of it, you know, even nowadays we spend a lot of time on beauty shots, whatever, just to show how amazing your fucking CGI is or whatever. Everything had a point. The landscapes are gorgeous, right? But it really gave you a sense of the vastness of it. It's just like, okay, we have to cross that. And you kind of see the mountain range in the distance or whatever. And they're talking about, oh yeah, the camels will die in about 20 days. You know, let's go. Because like when I was driving across country and we're on the plain states, you know, you can see, you know, 3 hours ahead of you. Everything had a point to it. It really did have a point to it. But to piggyback on what you're saying though, is the moments of his contemplation, they focused on his contemplation, you know, with holding a rock, everything he did. And it gave you such, a unique insight. I mean, like I'm trying not to retread things you said, Joe. Maybe I'm just kind of piling on to
patting yourself right now.
Yeah, I'm patting myself. But it's just, you know, this thing is perfectly constructed. I'm going to shut up and give it a 1.
If I may, there is one last point I want to make. Well, actually, 2 quick ones. I meant to mention this in narrative. I'm not interested in the historical accuracy of this because it's not about history, and there's a lot that goes into what's true and what's not, amalgamations of characters. That's not important for the intent, I think, of the work. Secondly, there's an interesting thing. I'm going to go all Freud for a second. There's a question of whether T. Lawrence was gay or not, or if he was asexual. I noticed a lot of imagery in this. Perhaps I'm projecting my own thoughts into it, but I specifically want to mention one scene where he's being whipped and being held down. I got a lot of sadomasochistic tension out of that. I don't know if anyone else did, but I was reading it at, like, there was that look of delight in pain and masochism and sadism and all that kind of the open door of that Turkish, I forget what rank he was, but leader.
He was the leader of the garrison there. Yeah.
I couldn't hear you, Scott.
He was the leader of the garrison in the city.
It just seemed very, I don't know if any of you have seen Glamorama by Bret Easton Ellis, but it had a very kind of sadomasochistic feel to it. I mean, perhaps that's just me, but I got that kind of subtext.
That was actually one of the things when I was patting myself before. I'm like sitting here, I lost my train of thought. And one of the things was he was very soft-spoken, and he said, you know, early on that he was different. And, you know, back then, you know, you had to bury your gays, even more so. But Beth looked it up, and apparently he was, well, whether he was actually asexual or not, but he didn't have, you know, there were no relationships that, you know, he was traced to.
He did hire people to flog him, though.
Did he really?
Yeah, there is that element to him. Again, there's a lot of like unknowns about this guy. Even to this day, people have a whole lot of different perceptions of him as a character, which makes him a fascinating figure in history.
And also, it makes sense. But I mean, if you think about the movie, even if he's not gay, the movie is very singularly sexual. There's no women in this movie. There's not even a woman role. I don't even, if you could tell me there's one woman character, I don't know if there's a woman in the movie.
Well, there's women mourners at the funeral. That's about
like in the rest of the movie. There isn't one. So you can't.
One of them had a line.
There's literally, there's no women in the military. There's no women on the battlefield. There's no women when they're fighting in the garrison or any of the places they go, because these are abandoned places where only men are right. Only men go, and that's where you have that kind of, you know, military film history. It's always about the men and the closeness knit of the unit and the individual and the relationship he has with each one of these different people. So you know, while I don't think, and I agree with you, I don't want to like go into historical accuracy. I do think, you know, it's important that, you know, they lionized them with a person that seemed to have a full potential of emotions. He didn't just give you a rah version. So at least if this wasn't what he was 100%, if he was multifaceted, this performance is multifaceted, which I would say leads into the protagonist, whoever is.
Yeah, that's a good point. We're skipping over protagonist for a second, but Scott for antagonist.
I'll say sorry.
Go ahead. Chris.
No, you're
Scott.
antagonist.
No. Yeah. Oh, you're right. Okay. So true. So actually, I mean, you guys tell me if you disagree. I think it's an internal and external one in this case, like an obvious one to me. Of course, his own internal battles, a lot of things you just said, right? Trying to figure out who he is, right? He even says it himself. He's not sure. He's literally almost making it up, or at least discovering it along the way, along the hero's journey, and then sort of does discover it and gets disillusioned by who he's become by the end of it, right? But of course, then a lot of the big battles, the set pieces, the war stuff, he has to go out and do his military campaigns in the vastness of the East over there, and apply his we'll say British military training knowledge, and then marry that to the way that the Arab forces operate, right, and the techniques and tools that they have. So I think, of course, he feels the squeeze, if you will, from both ends, both his internal pressure, trying to be a leader, or at least be a figurehead, but also battling with himself, and then having to figure out strategies one of the cool sections I thought was when they're doing the raids on the trains, right? So he's like, all right, we're a small band of group. Obviously, we do some guerrilla warfare. And that's, I thought, was a cool thing too. But he's trying to figure out the best strategy because he feels that pressure, because now he's got the British brass, if you will, breathing down his neck, being like, go out and do it, Lawrence, right? So I think it's both of those things. And I think to its credit, and as we've all mentioned, it balances those two elements so fucking well that you feel his pressure at all times from whichever one to whatever degree is leaning on him the most at any given moment in the film. So yeah, I got to give that a very strong one.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. I was going to say in regarding to what the reason he was planning those missions, which are again that's a Western special, right? Robbing the train, the Great Train Robbery. Don't want the reason he's planning it so is not exactly what you were saying. I think it's that he doesn't want anyone to die, right? That was the whole point for the whole movie. That was his biggest fear.
Best strategy when you
losing
do that.
Anyone, right? But it's like he would do it as long as because he went back in the desert. He doesn't want to leave anyone behind or sacrifice anyone, and that's the thing he has to learn. That's the hero's journey of this, is that there is sacrifice in everything that he's doing. But when it comes to the antagonist, there's a couple of options, and I think it's a roving antagonist. I'm sorry, there are moments when he has to kind of go through people like Ali, where they first meet at that well scene where he shoots his guide, and then he has to kind of overcome his frustration with that person. But I think the lurking antagonist is obviously the Turks in general for their battle against, but it's the freedom of whoever's against the Arab nations that are trying to get freedom. So if you're saying it's the Turks, if you're saying it's the British army who are really trying to hold them down, was what you find out in the last final segment
English
of
colonists
it.
Again,
right?
obviously.
Yeah, so it's which is his own army. He's fighting for them, but he's also basically fighting his own antagonist all the time. It's really, really, really tough. So but I'd say it's still a 1 because of all those are all good. That it's not the strongest one, that it's definitive, but it's definitely it's lurking enough that it causes him to have to struggle. So that's why I'd give it a 1.
Yep.
I like how we've got I'm trying not to bleed into protagonist protagonist.
And if you want,
Ian, why don't you go, and then I'll continue, because I realized what I was going to say was going to bleed over into protagonist. So
fair enough. I understand that the point I'm going to make is full of shit and pretentious as all hell. I realized that going in. The son, in the sense that 1, it is a constant threat to all these people, but 2, if you wanted to mythologically, Lawrence was an Icarus-like character, reaching his height of his potential, and to the point where his ambition caused his downfall. And I
think that's true.
So I know it's pretentious as all hell, but
I still think it works. Even if you label it pretentious, I think it's accurate and it's there and is handled well. Agreed.
But yeah, the Turks and all of and all the politicizing, very true as well. Chris, go ahead.
I'm giving antagonist 1. One thing, there was one line I wish I could remember what it was, where it's talking about colonialism. It's just like, oh yeah, we British used to be colonialists or something like that. I'm like, yeah, in America we know nothing about that either. Sorry. So the protagonist here is T.E. Lawrence, and he's a man. He starts off. He's the perfect road to hell paved with good intentions, but he has created the hell for himself. I mean, he's a guy. He's a kind of pure of heart type character that so many people take advantage of him. He starts to lose fat. He starts to not trust when people are in earnest, like Ali, starting to concern about him. Where he's just like, hey, what?
So it comes back to the trust theme.
Yeah, it's like he completely loses himself in this, completely, and those that have been around him most of the journey are the only ones that can see it. British Army doesn't give a flying fuck because but it's kind of hard to really put any more on him than we've already said, which is why I wanted to tie into the antagonist, because he is somebody who seemed like he was happy-go-lucky. As Joe pointed out, he's very meticulous, very thoughtful in many different ways, like with regard to, painting a map or, contemplation or whatever. And it's funny because the people that actually stay with him, because we had talked about, the funeral, like nobody knew him at the funeral. The people who knew him best were the ones at the end who are still concerned with him. And I find him to be a very tragic character, a very, very tragic character, in fact. I try not to retread anything we have said before. But he is the embodiment of the themes. He is there is a reason this is called Lawrence of Arabia. He is the fucking embodiment of the themes. He is the protagonist, but it is everything inside of him, the forces that around him that use him that are his antagonist. I mean, this film, we talked about All About Eve earlier. This is all about Lawrence or Lawrence. It breaks my heart because he really did his two, I want to call them squires for lack of a better word. He really did care about them. And losing one, even though it was a sandstorm, it wasn't really his fault. He took responsibility because It wasn't though. What?
Sorry, Chris. Just to like sort of nitpick that, they wanted to go with them, and even though he knew it was a dangerous journey, he's like, okay, sure, you can come along, you young, inexperienced, 15-year-olds or whatever they were. And yeah, it was an accident, but he let them come with him, and because of that, one of them got killed.
But he is an idealist, and he's starting to, at that point in time, he started to believe his own hype to a certain degree. Excuse me. He felt that thing of invincibility. I mean, he did go back to get the man who was lost in the desert, who was lost in the anvil of the desert. But the thing is, he was so tortured by the death of and it's probably because of that, Scott, because he probably knew that he shouldn't have taken these two teenagers with them. But, he was so caught up in the journey. So it was, it's this attrition that wore on him. So here's somebody who's a good of heart, who really does, like these two young men, Ali and Jose Ferrer's character. Jose Ferrer character and Alec Guinness are probably less so than Ali and these two young men. But, it's I'm going on too much because you get lost in these details, but I'm definitely giving him one. He's an outstanding, incredible character, and it's kind of hard to divorce anything else from him because all of a sudden I realize I'm getting into supporting characters. So shut it up.
Oh yeah, I know.
That's fair. Okay.
Manic pixie dream person. You don't let them lead your armies.
Look what it leads to. Yeah, that's really funny.
He really kind of is that stereotype of a person who's not really in this world. I look up to him quite a bit. We all want to be Lawrence. We're all actually Brighton, to be honest. That's the thing is that you want to have that kind of devil may care. I'm
Bravado and stuff.
the point of my ideals, my compassion will save the world.
It's an idealist. He's a true idealist. I mean,
Yeah, to watch that come crashing down, it's that's why it's. I think Scott, you mentioned it's a tragedy. It is.
Well, Chris said that, but I agree with that, of course.
That's why I care quite a bit about this character, and always have. I've always been impressed by T. Lawrence's story, and so that's all I'm going to say about it.
Well, all right. One small levity thing. I mean, you call your movie Lawrence of Arabia, and if you end up giving Lawrence a 0, like you royally fucked up the film. So yeah, I'm giving it a 1, of course. But I just want to go back to that one scene, Chris, because I think there's a lot of stuff there when he takes off after they've taken the one city, the first major like campaign that they've won. Right, they're in the city, they're occupying it. He's like, all right, I have to go to Cairo and report this. And the two, the young kids come with him, and he goes. One, I think Ali says to him, "Oh, you're gonna cross Sinai?" He's like, "Yeah, Moses did it." He's identifying himself with another mytho-historical character already at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And and we've said before or earlier that yes, he's multifaceted, he's flawed. Maybe most people around him get some sides of him, know him to some degree, but even like I said, even he doesn't know himself, which by default, I think, by nature, thus makes him a more interesting and, in the end, tragic character. But I'm giving it a super strong 1 because
that
of
goes into the him being a myth in his own lifetime.
Yeah, exactly. But I do have one other thing.
Saw the story that they wanted to take from that, just like real mythology.
Exactly, you're right. It ties in really well in that way. But I did say one thing. Maybe I should have mentioned the themes. I was sort of saving here, and I sort of jokingly mentioned it, but I'm not sure how comfortable or how to feel about the fact that this movie and especially the character does have overtones of the white savior trope, but it's also semi based in the reality. So and especially because I don't know if we mentioned that it was made in 1962, so certainly the prevailing social mindset probably was way more conducive to it at that point, even though it still exists today as a stereotype. But it's sometimes a little iffy how to feel about it the way the film did it, but either way I'm giving the character within the story a 1. Sure. Go ahead.
I'd like to speak to the white savior if I can for a second. Sorry, Joe.
Yes. What do you need?
Because he kind of came into this kind of detached as an assignment. It was an intellectual assignment for him. It was the Arabs, it was the people around who became enamored with him, that once he proved himself, Ali burned his clothes and gave him in full regalia when he's just well, when you go to Cairo, you're going to put your trousers back on. And, we don't really see him in the full British uniform until the end. So the thing is,
it doesn't even fit well.
And it doesn't even
it's not even his uniform.
But my whole point to the white savior thing is, unlike the normal trope of the white savior, where the white savior kind of comes into this society wanting to be a part of it or lead it, he kind of came in from the opposite thing. He was an intellectual. He was kind of somebody who wanted to do good, didn't really, and more fell into that role and was brought in there because of his prowess, because of his intellect, his somewhat objectivity. The prince, Alec Guinness, asked him, took him on his council one-on-one. He started earning respect, and the people wanted him to be an Arab. They wanted him. They started looking past him. So that my whole point is, I'm not quite gonna put this in the white savior category because dynamically it's different than what the normal white savior trope would be.
That's a very fair point. Sorry, very fair point. Very well response. But the last thing I want to make a joke or reference Avatar somewhere in here, so I'll do it now, and then I'll let you speak.
But why?
Because it's the opposite of that. Yeah. Go ahead.
So this is a good. That's a 1's all around, right?
Well, I didn't do it. But it's okay. I was just going to say, a little bit to build on to Chris's point. While it could fit into that trope, it also fits if you're going on the ideal that Lawrence isn't really accepted. He's looking for acceptance with a group, right? So he's looking for acceptance, and he finds it more with another group of people. So if you do feel that the color of your skin doesn't necessarily dictate what you are as a person, then it actually fits more within more modern terms of that he's looking for the people that accept him for who he is and what he does with them, and like that his actions speak louder than what he because he has to overcome that white savior-itis the whole time, right? The king always challenges him. They don't just accept him. He actually has to prove it. So, that would be my contrary to that. But just regarding the protagonist, I definitely have some notes. We hadn't mentioned Peter O'Toole's name once yet. So if we'd like to give him a little dab,
I guess we'll throw him a crumb.
That was my bad, Joe.
That's okay. He's introduced in this movie. Like, you see that in the opening credits. Going through the credits, they list all these people and it says introducing Peter O'Toole. This is his first film role. I mean, there are some stodgy moments of like British overacting itis and whatever that are of the period, but if this was your first acting role, is a historic epic that could be the biggest budgeted movie of all time leading up to it. That's like the grandest movie ever, and it's all on your shoulders and your eyes, really, and where you're walking. That deserves a mention, one or two. On top of that, regarding some of the topicality of him, there's a line where it's in the early part where it says, the trick is minding that it doesn't hurt, or minding that it hurts, is not minding that it hurts, right? Which is important. And that's he is kind of ends up becoming the protection from the British to the Arabs as well. So he's not just like using them. He is trying to shield them and get them things. So, I mean, as a protagonist, it actually fits a lot of the more modern I think feelings when it comes to towing the line back and forth, having to prove yourself, and earned, which is the more modern usage. This is a character I think earns his place. He's going to work his miracle. He becomes like more, it's a Moses character. I think people will say Jesus, but I think it's more of a Moses character because he's taking them into the new lands, right? And that's what I would think. And he has to go back and save everybody. I mean, it's a savior complex that, he really needs to do it all. So, and then the last thing I'll say, even better than that, reflective of the two characters, which we didn't say their names at all either, Faraj and Daoud, I want to say their names are. I think that's right. He has that moment where they're begging to become his servants, and Ali says they are not servants, they're outcasts, they're parentless, and he can resemble every single person's ailment and sadness and moment. He takes that burden upon him. That's this part of the same thing. It's not that he wants to be a savior. It's that he feels, I think, the desires of all people and wants to be there and meet that need. So obviously, strong one for Peter and Larry, Peter/Larry on this one.
No, you're right. I just felt like I had to bring up like the white savior-itis thing, but I think you're right. Like, I largely agree to an extent. It's just that I noticed it in sort of like weird ups and downs, at least upon the viewing. But having talked it out, yeah, right. Like, I like the way you analyze it right there, and you're right. Like, let's give Peter O'Toole a bone or two here because of all the like you said, introduce him starring first role, has to carry it on his shoulders and does.
And his estimation, like the great thing, I mean, it's in the style a little bit. You'll see that the whole movie, if you watch, like his camels keep getting bigger, right? Like he keeps getting higher and higher.
I noticed that.
And if you notice, that's his robes get nicer, they're cleaner, they're taking care of him. And so the estimation of he's so appreciated that they're giving him and because he's sacrificing for them, that he's fully accepted. And I'm one to very much feel the white savior. And I think this is one of the movies, especially of this period and of the Westerns and everything else. I mean, it's a general trope in all those movies that doesn't even is probably the best exemplar of the opposite side of it, in my opinion.
No, good call. I like it.
Well, I don't know about supporting, but I think this part of it, Chris, I think you mentioned it, but someone else might have, where it's that he's called out constantly about it. That's one of the, and so I'm going to talk about three characters here, and then I'll pass it along to everyone else. One is Ora Abu Tai, I'm going to pronounce that incorrectly. What's interesting is he's one of the few, he's a real life character, and one of the families is actually, his descendants are very unhappy with his portrayal in this. But it's funny is that he actually takes on, to go back to Joseph Campbell, he takes on the rogue stereotype. He's the Han Solo character, if you will, because that's the most famous of the rogue stereotypes in popular culture. And that doesn't matter, again, history. He actually plays that character really well. the pirate king, the whatever
Swashbuckler.
Swashbuckling character you want to. I love, and he's like, I see in your heart you're an adventurer, you're a rogue like I am. Come out and join me in my merry band to in the future. And he can't do that because he can't escape the past. But I really enjoyed that portrayal of the character. And he's the one of the few that actually has complaints about the representation in this. But also, I want to quickly talk about the fact that you have a bunch of Egyptian, Mexican guy, all playing white people, all playing Arabs. So it's a nice racial kaleidoscope, all playing a singular race. But Sheriff Ali and Brighton, I think, are some of the most important of the secondary characters in this because they portray people who buy into the image of Lawrence of Arabia from the different sense. Sheriff Ali being the Arab and feeling the betrayal of Lawrence at the end of this by him kind of failing to be the hero he should have been. And Brighton is also from almost representing the British men who had bought into this ideal. And both of them leave crying from their searching for that that hero that existed and no longer does and has been beaten down by the system. So I think they're watching their growth as characters and the reflection they have on Lawrence of Arabia is, I think, the most important part. I also had a bunch of jokes. Steve-O was here comparing him to Brighton, but he's not. So
we'll do that later to his face.
Yes.
Sure. No, I mean, I think you're right. Like, and the note I have is like they're almost like his two best friends, best allies, right? And they often play like the classic like angel devil sort of on the shoulder, right? Like Sharif is like more reserved. Like he's very disappointed when Lawrence, if you will, like goes full on like full war tilt, right? And like and follows suit like with sorry, what was he? Not Ali, his other friend. I know it's hard to pronounce it. You just said it. I don't even remember it.
Let's go Abu because
Auda is now the kid.
Auda, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I'm very bad with Arabic names. I apologize. But I'm just saying, like, I feel like they fill those roles. And another like moment of levity, or at least thing that I thought of is, if you guys remember in Inglourious Bastards, like to me, I always took it as a joke of the generals, the British generals in Lawrence, were like, down with the Turkish Empire, all the way down, sir, right? Like it's almost like just enough over the top to like, well, now Lawrence, I need you to go there and take over the trains and so forth. Like, right? It's shit like that, and so it all works because they're more than stereotypes, one-dimensionals, even though like they do represent like just sort of one kind of mindset, or at least a certain mindset more than like and set against the other ones. And also like the newspaper guy, Bentley, I believe.
Bentley.
Yeah.
Like I think that was a nice little inclusion, like because he's the one. He even says outright, he's like, "Yep, I'm here to like basically use Lawrence as propaganda, right?" And then he gets to see, at least has a more of an insight to who Lawrence is, and is sort of repulsed by it to a degree, at least at the massacre battle, if we'll call it. So I think all the secondary characters that revolve around them, at least the central ones, fill out the world and are vehicles to sort of for him to bounce off of to explore himself and the character at large. So
I think that's true, and I think the reporter one is a good point because usually that's one of my least favorite parts of almost every movie is that they base it on.
Agreed.
And I think of, I always use a point of another person of another person I'll mention here. It's like the newer older Obi-Wan Kenobi when Ewan McGregor plays I think it's Men in Stare at Goats. It's like one of the worst. Like I hate the intro where they have to force a reporter in there to do all the exposition. It's awful, and they didn't do it here at all. And that's the basis of the whole story. To me, this, we mentioned Alec Guinness, but Alec Guinness is the weird true white facing part of this, but to me, it's the gravitas. And he's the one that, if this movie is 10 years earlier, he is Lawrence of Arabia, right? That's the story. So, I mean, he couldn't do it, but you got to put him in there. It's a David Lean movie, and he gives the whole movie its backbone, its spine, its gravitas, its best performances, and the most, even if it's those biting lines that are the ones that are the sharpest tools on all the characters. He's the ones that kind of chops everyone else back down to size when he's talking to them. And I think it's to be, really appreciated. Also, the British insider character that's, basically he's always there just kind of chuckling, and he sets the whole thing in motion by bringing Lawrence to
Dryden,
Claude Rains, who's in, Casablanca, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, half a dozen,
Invisible Man,
Invisible Man. I mean, you look at these people, the people in these movies, the amount of epics and the great movies that they're in is just, it's insane. Like it is out of this world. So to me, I really appreciated Alec Guinness. I really appreciated that, Obi-Wan feeling in that wise man, not the soldier, right? Everyone else in this movie is a soldier. And he's the one that says, my father started this war, but I'm the one that has to finish it. And I'd rather just be, taking care of my gardens, but I'm doing this for my people and for this land. So he has to also take his own burden. And to me, he's more important than all these, it's kind of a rolling cycle of British generals and lead men and people that give him missions and people that do it. So it's between Dryden and Alec Guinness, King Faisal are good. And then the two associates I think are very charming. It is nice to have like those nice squire type characters. But
R2-D2 and C-3PO.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it's the same. It's in the sand. It's in the desert. There's walking around, and
I thought of that too. Obviously,
So I mean, it's and like the sound, the music. I mean, I'm sure that can be in the later part and the style, but this is we haven't been giving out numbers. Has anyone been doing any zeros? I assume we're on one. So
I think this is like a 10 film.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the unbalancing on some of this, like style wise, this is like half of this movie is style to me, and like the acting is another portion. I mean, everything. This is an out of 15 movie in my world. So going
off this fucking scale over there, buddy.
Well, This is one of those films, and this is why it was hard to kind of delineate antagonist, protagonist, everything, because everything the style, everything feeds into the same thing. It's like, I'm not going to compare. This is a very loose comparison, but when I was thinking about doing this podcast, I was thinking about Starship Troopers. This is not Starship Troopers, but the reason we gave Starship Troopers a 10 was because there were certain things that the film worked itself around. This film, everything works around Lawrence and around his journey, but there's this wonderful, intricate, very colorful, very detailed web around Lawrence with all these great characters. And so to your point, Joe, that is why it's kind of hard because everything feeds into the exact same thing in such an intimate level. I'm just going to say supporting character, Joe, I loved right on the money with the reporter. Usually the reporter is oh shit, we forgot to give the protagonist this.
Oh shit, we need a framework. Oh yeah.
Or we need an expository bullshit. This actually was like probably one of my favorite reporter roles, as you said, because he actually did. And this is actually where the colonialism line came back, where I chuckled, because he's just like, oh yeah, you're British. I'm like, yeah, because we in America. But I really liked how he was the reflection. And actually he did, for somebody who kind of came in to write a puff piece to get the Americans into war, the fact that he did kind of resent Lawrence after a while, that actually gave him some dynamics that I think are usually lost in this role. I agree with everything you said. I got to talk about Omar Sharif for a second. Number one, he is Egyptian. Number two, Joe, you don't know this, but I have a thing. I guess it's because I'm blue-eyed. I have a thing for brown eyes. He's got gorgeous brown eyes. And number three, my bridge comment at the beginning was because he actually gave up acting to pursue bridge because that was his passion. Wow. So I'm just filling in on Omar Sharif, but I loved his character. I loved Ali because I felt that if there was one true friend, true equal,
the closest to that,
the closest equal person he had would have been Ali. I mean, he had his squires whose names I'm fucking blocking.
Faraj and Daoud.
Sorry, Faraj.
Raj and Daoud.
Raj and Daoud. But he was kind of like the mentor to him. And Prince Farid.
Oh, Faisal?
Faisal, yeah, Prince Faisal. He was kind of like some kind of warped kindred spirit in some weird. But so I think his
Faisal and Dryden pair, not Faisal and T. Lawrence.
The what?
Faisal turns out to be a lot more like Dryden.
Yeah.
I think
the puppet masters in the back.
Yeah, but in the beginning, he doesn't come off that way, of course, because that's the way puppet masters. Well, actually, no. At the beginning, neither one of them come off that way, which is how puppet masters work. But yeah, I think if he has one true friend in this whole thing, ends up being Sharif. So yeah, I'm definitely giving this a very strong one.
I had one last thing to say. I don't know if any of you. I'm a big fan of British television. For those of you who don't know, there's a show called Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister that is brilliant. It's perhaps one of the best political shows of all time. And no one like the British handles the machinations of middle management bureaucrats. And so if you like Dryden, I recommend Yes Minister because it's a show about that. It's I love those type of like malicious, busybody British.
Yep, that is your bag, baby.
Those are two shows I've been meaning to watch, and like
they're phenomenal.
With Claude Rains, man, I can listen to that man read a grocery list, and I'd be very happy.
And you can watch in the loop or something too, which then you get the international both sides of it game too, right? So that's the movie version. Anything with Iannucci in, basically, but not to get into TV too much, but.
But also one other thing, and I guess one of my favorite movies is 1951 version of A Christmas Carol by Brian Desmond Hurst. At the beginning, one of the ministers is played by the ghost of Christmas Past. Had to bring that in.
Cool.
Joe.
All right. Yeah, and I just want to say also, I didn't talk a little bit about Ali, but Ali to me is the most steady. Omar Sharif, I saw Chivago probably for the first time about a year and a half ago. I had never seen it. I think he is one of the best, almost natural actors I've seen in a long time. He doesn't break character. He doesn't overact. Every moment, it's like it feels like it's swashbuckling, but also in a not in a realistic way.
Grounded.
He's very grounded, and when he fights pushes up against Lawrence, it is the key to the whole movie because that is the friction, and it's very strong, and that's the gatekeeper that sets it apart. So going on to dialogue and script, to me, this is a, if somehow Starship Troopers got a 10 with that, whatever that script was, then this script is a 475,322. So between the long takes of camels walking and horses running, you have these great back and forths. I mean, the collection I have here, I don't even know how to even start with them, but a lot of them go to the Guinness scenes because I do think he gets the best barbs in, even though
he does.
He really does. I mean, and they're the real also the most effective because he's the one that has to actually he's the one that's going to have to live with the results of this the most because he's the king of the land that's being handled, right? The British can leave and do whatever, but this is his legacy. So I mean, the whole part about not wanting to be a soldier, back and forth about the English and trading. I thought you're one of those desert loving English. You're merely a general. I must be a king. And even the part of that Lawrence is a sword with two edges, which goes back to the multifaceted, weird. What is a two-edged sword? So, I mean, another one. It seeps throughout the whole movie when there is dialogue, and when there isn't dialogue, the absence of dialogue is also perfectly done. So it's a 1. Yeah.
Yes, ahead, absolutely. I mean, it's the thing is I feel like that has come up a few times, and it takes like another level of film and script writing to use those silences between the moments of extremely excellent on paper dialogue and of course performed. Right. So, I mean, absolutely agree, Joe. It's just fantastic throughout, like the interactions, the exchanges, the sort of like you said, the barbs going back and forth that are being thrown across every room and then separated by those moments of small contemplative silences, right? Or like just small intimate moments between, say, Ali and Lawrence or, whatever else, any other given characters. So, yeah, man, it's just so fucking good. And it's quotable without being again, over the top. It all feels, I'm sorry, Chris, but you're going to say naturalistic. Yeah, it does. And that's why it works so fucking well, because it rides that line that in the same way that like the epic moments versus the smaller moments, like the conversations can be like heated and aggressive and frictional, like fraught with tension and friction, like you said, or they can be like nice and small and sweet between characters as well. So I'm definitely giving it a very strong one, and I will end my praise of it there.
The writer is Robert Bolt, and he did not win the Academy Award for this. He won for Dr. Zhivago, and then he won it again the next year for A Man for All Seasons. So, which I mean, those are makeups, but
he's an okay writer then.
He did okay for this in the '60s to get 2 out of 10. So
yeah. I mentioned this up in themes, but I guess it as good as anywhere in dialogue. I was actually impressed by the respectful treatment of the Islamic faith in this. I have a lot of friends, and I work in a heavily Sunni population. And so I know quite a bit about the philosophy behind Islam, and it kind of pervades a lot of the quiet moments in this where compassion and generosity. And I think that there is one of the reasons I think that we're talking about white savior isn't going back is that it's very respectful of the culture it goes into.
No, that's a really good point.
Very informs the best of the Islamic faith informs a lot of the moments in this, and without trying to be like without doing the Orientalism of like, let me display this as a oddity. No, it's treated very naturally. Aside from there's one scene where they're doing the whalers in the canyon, which is kind of let's show this, but like for most part, I think that they handle the faith very, very well. So I have to give full credit for that.
Very solid point. Good call.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ian. I thought of that myself, especially during the Cold War. This wasn't quite McCarthy area, but it would be so easy for, and again, it was a good point you brought up about the white savior is he didn't come in, to teach anybody. He came there to learn. In a lot of ways. So it's a very good distinction. I just want to say the discussion on politics between Ali and Lawrence and the other guy who's Anthony Quinn, whose name I'm blocking. I called him Jose Ferrer before. Discussion on politics where they're in the room and with Alec Guinness and Dryden. And then the whole thing, which I think is close to it or around at the same time about the water pumping station. I am saying this because I'm having a hard enough time keeping this all in my head without trying to quote lines, but those things in particular, the things about political discussions, watching how politics work, and this is all in the second half of the film. So basically, it's basically we're deconstructing a character and reconstructing the environment. And I thought those were particular scenes of note with regard to dialogue. So I'm going to say 1.
Cool.
Right on.
Scott, themes. No, sorry, style.
Yes. Thank you. I'm glad it landed on me. I was going to ask for it, but I'm going to steal something from Joe because I like the way, now I think you're coming a bit regular on our system. You're like, I would give, for example, in Spirited Away, I give style a 5 or whatever you said, right? So we can only give 0s and 1s because that's the way you set it up. But I'm giving it a super strong 1. And since it's on me first, and one of you even said it, right? So first of all, the fucking cinematography, the shots of everything. And this is one of the biggest, I don't know what the budget was at the time, but it must have been massive, insane.
That's $15 million, which I don't know how much that translates.
Whatever that was in 1962, must have been ridiculous, right? But they've spent every fucking penny to make this movie look incredible. And I'll give you guys the soundtrack, but I'll only speak about the shots themselves. But every shot is so amazingly, beautifully, and meticulously constructed when it needs to be. And especially to me, the thing that stood out the most, which might be obvious, and I think you mentioned it, right? So they have the sun, right? It's just beating down. It's an endless fucking desert that they have to cross. And you feel you're Jesus Christ, I don't know if you're going to make it because it's just the way they present it. It's, the horizon stretches out forever and it just cuts to the sun, just getting more intense. And there's so many things like that. The set pieces, man, the train things, everything about the style and the shooting of this film is just spot on, perfect. You have to appreciate it for what it is, and I am going to give it possibly the strong, tied with maybe themes and protagonists, the strongest of ones.
Yeah, I want to go on this because I'm gonna go Shotzi as well, I think. And if you told I wrote this down. If you told me this movie took a decade and cost $1 billion, I'd be like, yeah, that's about right. I mean, it took it says here a year and a half of filming, which
That's motherfucking insane.
That's a crazy amount of time. And it goes from the shots to even thinking, the editing of this movie is actually, even though it's so long, it is perfectly edited. The decisions of how long, and it leads with the shots, but to decide, okay, we're going to put Ali walking from the far distance. You don't know who's coming, and it's always who's coming, where are they coming, and where are they coming from. You feel the dust of this movie. You feel the costumes. There's a note. I mean, there's two things. This was edited by a woman. I don't know her name, Anne something. The costumes were also done by a woman who they mistakenly did not put her name in for a nomination. So she was not nominated for an Oscar because they did not enter her name into the list of. But I mean, this has. You probably say the best sunrise shot of all time. It has the best desert shot of all time. Like, you just keep listing the most pristine filming in the dark. I mean, this is not something that is done often, but the noir is different because it's usually indoors and they're cheating it. They're filming in the desert in dusk and dark, in the magic hours, and making it look unbelievable. Like, I hate sand, and I would hang out where they were most of those movies. Like, it is amazing. So, I mean, that the score, obviously, the costumes, the editing, and I mentioned him once, but David Lean is this. He is the puppet master of this whole thing. He is an epic monster, right? Like, when you want the epic, you go to David Lean, you go Bridge River Kwai, you go. Dr. Zhivago is also, I think, a kind of sometimes forgotten epic when it comes to these things. But this is, Sergio Leone gets credit for all of the beautiful shots and his long takes and his staring. But this is to another level. This isn't cheating. This isn't Italian backset. This is in the desert, in the real places, in Arabia, but in the countries, with the scope. I mean, I know I could talk forever. I could do this. I could do an hour on this alone, right? The scope.
Let's do an article.
The scope of the production. There was a mention how, like, the King of Jordan just gave him as many people as he wanted. Like, those extras. How many extras? How many horses are in those scenes? You couldn't count it. A million.
Nowadays there'd be 5, and the rest of them would be CGI.
Right, and it wouldn't even be close to that. And then my favorite part was the one scene where he's like, "I'm going to take 50 people into the death desert." Who takes 50 people? Who has 50 extras on a death march? Basically, like, that is fucking sane. So just to show that, like, look what I can do, is like have these huge camels, have everyone just hang out on them. It's just magnanimous. This is before this is before all the things we do now for, like, camping and backpacking. Forget about sat phones and all that stuff. Sure. And shooting in the dusk and the dawn are the shortest times to shoot. You've got 1, maybe 2 takes,
like an hour,
3 takes.
No, sorry, Chris. I got one more thing, and I'll pass to you for sure. But Joe made me think of it. Yes, I agree with the editing. So I had my notes. This is the anti-Ben-Hur, because Ben-Hur feels every second long as it is. This movie just doesn't even breeze by. It is perfectly paced and edited, and that is a credit to the style as well. And that's my final thought on it.
I'm just going to say that Frank Herbert, when he did Dune, took influence from T. Lawrence, and Lucas took influence from both Dune and T.E. Lawrence. John Williams definitely took influence from Maurice Jarre. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say Maurice Jarre was the father of Jean-Michel Jarre, who is one of my favorite.
Right on.
musicians. So I was really excited because I go, Maurice Jarre. Beth's like, is he Jean-Michel's father? And I'm like, I don't know. And I just looked it up right before we podcast.
Spoiler. He is.
The music's glorious. It is just, if there is a way to audibly, and by the way, I'm not taking anything away from John Williams, by the way. But if you can put what you see into sound, it is so perfectly.
It sounds like a fucking desert, man.
It is fucking perfectly matched. I mean, the music to this is gorgeous. One thing I pointed out, and this Ian, getting back to the whole being afraid this is going to be a puff piece. the moment I knew it wasn't was when he was walking on the train. You know, he was walking. It was right before he got shot. Was it after
the train race?
He was walking on the train, and his theme became discordant. They did a variation on it. It was slightly dissonant and discordant. And I said, and it was at that moment in time I knew. I said, this is not going to be a puff piece because this is starting to signal. This is a cue that he's starting to believe his own hype. That this is the start of his downfall, and that is exactly what it was. And all props to Maurice Jarre because I was looking for some sign that would say this wasn't going to be a puff piece, and that was it. So it is getting a very strong one from me.
Cool. All right, I'm giving it a one as well. Chris, recommend this. Does this deserve to be on the AFI?
It most certainly deserves to be on the AFI, even though Ian, your research and
Bill might know this
that it might actually not be an American film.
It's not. It's a British film.
I agree. Yeah,
It's a British film, but American exceptionalism, we co-opt everything. I this is like I saw this when I was a kid, on a maybe 18-inch black and white or color TV. I don't remember. It was 1970 something or other. I've been always meaning to see it since. From like Joe said, the opening credits are over a motorcycle, him over a motorcycle. I mean, it's just the film is perfection. See it. If you've not seen it, go see it now.
I mean, yes, it's a fucking masterpiece. It's a 10 film. I think it's the first film you've given a 10 on the podcast, Joe, I believe, which I think says a lot, really. But no, I mean, of course I recommend it. Of course, I guess I'll say, if it was an American film, it absolutely should have been an AFI. It's strange to me that I didn't know it wasn't an American production and it still made it on. So maybe that's even more of a credit. I don't know what to tell you. But like I said, the list I have in the studio has it at number 7 and you had it number 5. It doesn't matter. It's in the top fucking 10 and it should be. So
quite frankly, I would be this to me. It should be number 1. I'm sorry, but as far as everything,
new conversation. Let's go.
Anyone who's out there listening, we have done an episode when we done with not the first 50, just 50 AFI films, and then we did our own ranking. So, Chris, when we finish up with all 100, then you can rank it at number 1 when we do the recap. So,
well, I'm not gonna. I don't want to poo-poo that. I don't think it's number 1, but it will and I know I'm a harsh critic. This is a definite recommend. The only holdout would be on it length to me, though. This falls into the legal that if this was released now, it would be released in 2 parts. So there is an intermission. So to me, if you watch it, it's 2-hour block, you take a break and you watch the next half the next night. Exactly. That's clean to me. That's 2 episodes. This is 2 movies that you don't have to do it. And it's Larry of Arabia 1 and 2, to me, and I just want to make sure I get my call outs. I know, but for the film editing, Andy Coates, right? Cinematographer, Freddie Young, best sound, John Cox. To me, the silence is, again, we went back to it with the scenes and the writing of it, but the silence in the desert, it's the speaking of volumes of the whole movie. It's the soft moments and, the epic, the money spent, the time spent, and the most beautiful things are the times when everyone quiets down and the movie gets to kind of dwell in this magical place that, will never exist in that way, will never be filmed that way ever again. So, I don't think this is my number 1 movie of all time, and I never think of it like that. But when you watch a movie like this, there's nothing but appreciation and awe that you don't imagine any other director can do this. You could see why every director that makes these great movies, like Lucas, you said, but Spielberg, it's his number 1 movie. People watch this movie every year. It makes sense. This would be top recommendation to me.
Well, I was gonna say this would. I don't know if this, Joe. I was just gonna say, AFI, it would be my number 1. It's not my favorite film, but it's definitely one of my favorite films. But you could not make this film today. You couldn't. You could not. It would be CGI and. It'd be shot in Canada.
It is possible if they they would. I'm giving it a 1, but no, it doesn't deserve to be on the AFI because it's not an American film. You have to have standards. It's either
America stole it from the British.
Yeah. Granted, I know it's ironic that we went and culturally appropriated the British and then storing it. So I guess it serves the British right. But yeah, I love this. Is one of my favorite films of all time. I'm one of those people who go back to it fairly regularly.
It says here on the listing, did you look of the reasoning why? It says here that certain films, notably The Bridge to River Kwai, which is also on the list, 2001, and Lawrence of Arabia were British made, but funded by and distributed by an American studio. So Lord of the Rings was made with was also made with American funding.
American money, so that's what it is. We got our fingers in the pies that it counts.
So I was wondering if it was just like an English thing, which seems, would be racist. But if that's your qualification, then I will go that I didn't go the AFI thing, but it's an arbitrary list that they made up their arbitrary rules. So if you want to throw in some epics with Alec Guinness in it, I'm cool with it. So
I mean, the thing is, we did do the River Kwai like a couple years back, and I mean, sure. I guess if American money counts, then sure, whatever.
And once we finish the AFI list in like 30 years, we're gonna move on to the BFI list.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Any other points?
No, the Joe FI list, which is much better. Anyway.
Coming soon, but I believe that makes it a 10, righty? Right.
It's a 10, and I absolutely agree with that score.
It deserves it. It's earned it for sure.
Well,
Lawrence
with Christopher Morgan.
Good night,
Scott Thurlow.
I will go succumb to my own hype right now.
Of course. And Joe Soria.
Staring at the stars right now.
Thanks for joining us. See you next time. Peace.
Editing and engineering by Stephen Hermosi. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.